In more company news, South African private healthcare provider Netcare delivered an improved financial performance for the 12 months that ended in September. The JSE-listed group says it has managed to execute its strategic projects despite a challenging macroeconomic environment and lingering COVID-19 impacts. I caught up with Jacques du Plessis, the MD of Netcare, earlier on and asked him how the easing of COVID-19 outbreaks has impacted the group's performance.
It's really a tale of two cities. The first half, we were still right in the grips of the pandemic, and obviously performance was muted. The latter half of the year, sort of since middle of January, we saw a much improved financial performance in terms of overall helping us that our revenue is now on the same level in absolute terms as it was before pandemic in 2019. And I think the two other outstanding features of our financials is certainly the fact that we are back in terms of declaring dividends, another dividend of 30 cents. Which brings the total dividend for the year to 50 cents. And then our cash conversion at 113%. And also, if one looks at our hospital occupancy in the latter half, closer to 63%. And now in October, November, 66%, which is back to 2019 level. In spite and despite the other macroeconomic factors, as you've mentioned, our insured lives stayed stable at around about 8.9 million insured lives. And then obviously we've got the effect of diesel, electricity and interest rate.
Jacques, let's talk about this particular period and the decisions you've taken to actually sell some of the decommissioned hospitals.
Now, we've got a total of 9,903 beds. And we took the decision last year already to dispose of smaller facilities that really didn't have the occupancy, and that totaled a total of 102 beds. So just to give you a relation in terms of the size of these hospitals, sort of very small hospitals, and there is sufficient alternative in those areas. One of the hospitals we actually sold to the Western Cape Department of Health. That transaction is still in a process of being completed.
Let's talk about the other segments of the group, the hospitals and emergency services, how they performed in terms of this particular year, primary healthcare as well. How did you perform in those units?
We saw very good occupancies, especially to the latter half of the year, moving back into that 66-67% occupancies full week, and just during the week, Monday to Friday, that's closer to 70%, and posting a total patient day increase of 4.8% or 4.8% increase in patient days for the full year. But as I said, if you look at just the last 6 months, in fact, the patient days increased by 13% compared to the previous second half when we were still in the grips of the pandemic. Also, good leverage on our margin. The margin, excluding the strategic costs, went up by 130 basis points. Then moving on to our primary care division, they did exceptionally well. Also had an increase in patient visits, both GP and dental visits of 4.3%. And their margin in the high double digits, so very good performance from them. And then similarly, in terms of our new product division, launched a number of new products, prepaid vouchers and also gap cover, which I think is what everybody knows about. And obviously that means that you can visit any Netcare facility irrespective of your network. And your gap cover can pay both the out-of-pocket from a doctor point of view or from a network point of view. We're also in partnership there with Checkers and Mr. Price to sell these prepaid procedures, which includes accident and emergency procedures as well. And that market is really taking off nicely. That's essentially catering for the portion of the population that cannot afford medical aid or medical scheme membership.
Jacques, you will be spending 1.6 billion rand in the next year in your capital expenditure. Some of it a chunk of it rather, is going into your mental health spend, your mental health division. Talk to us more about that and where there has been, and whether there's been a need and a growing need in that particular market to actually cater for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even before the pandemic, we've seen that there is a high demand for mental health services, and that's the one area where we will be expanding in terms of a bricks and mortar scenario. On the acute beds, we believe that there's sufficient private beds in the country, but in terms of mental health beds, we've just opened a new facility in Richards Bay, and we're busy building a new facility in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape, and we're also in the design phases of building another facility in Polokwane. So we certainly experience a high demand for those services.
How is the outlook looking like in terms of your preparations as far as how 2023 is expected to perform?
We're fortunate that the medical insured lives, which is 94% of our business at the moment, are very stable. In fact, that there was a little bit of a growth that we've seen this year, so it's a robust market. So first of all, that a portion of the market is not reducing. People certainly keep their medical aids for longer, even if there is job losses or a change of work. From a electricity point of view, we're fortunate. 10 years ago, we made sure that all our hospitals and primary care facilities have diesel generators, so we are not impacted by load shedding per se, except for the cost. So it costs roughly 4 times more to run a diesel generator than to buy power from Eskom. Certainly, if we compare this year, we spent about 36 million rand in terms of diesel, and it was about 9 million rand in the previous year. In terms of the rate of exchange, most of our equipment is also imported from overseas, so obviously it costs more to buy equipment. So that's a negative part of us, and there's no mechanism to actually recover that. That's the cost that we bear as a company. And just in terms of managing our energy levels, you would have seen in our reports, we actually have reduced our reliance on water and on electricity. In fact, we have got the second largest solar plant on the roof of our hospitals in the country.